Back, everybody. We are 2 matches down, 3 to go, and we're going to number 3 right now. We are going to have TookTheKids taking on Karn Co. I'm sorry, I have to keep looking at my page because these two teams do have incoming name changes, but they're not ready just as of yet. So they're the names that we are used to from stage number 1, Cookies. Let's start with TookTheKids. This is another team that made a big shakeup with their roster.
Just a little bit. You know,
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
this team is hilarious. All right. I really like Mr. B. Mr. B is the shining pillar of IGL excellence that Tier 2 needs. I think you should really keep an eye on how Mr. B handles this team in the situation they are currently in, because Trist was dropped. Trist was LFT, but they brought him back. Woo's just got relegated. Packer was on this team last stage, and they actually looked good with him. They had an 8-7 affair on Theme Park where Packer had subbed in. Packer's okay, all right? We can assume Packer's an okay guy. And Gavini, I'm not gonna lie to you. Who is Gavini? I guess we're gonna find out today. But this team is in a very tumultuous state, and quite frankly, the only thing that they can 100% rely on is Mr. B to lead them to victory. And if he does against Karn, who forcefully, you're gonna have a lot of fun with who's on that team too. I don't even know, to be completely real with you, I don't even know who's on the other team based on what they've got going on and their side of things as well. So it's gonna be a fun matchup for sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
on our on our roster page, Tanner, I'm sure you've been looking at it as well. For the side of Karn Co, there are just notes all over the place of what could be, what might be. So what we're gonna do, Tanner, is put up our best guess at the roster they're going to be fielding today, or at least our best guess at what their roster is going to be overall.
Heard that. I'll just throw that away. It's a mess. Like, there's a Karn Co. They made a bunch of roster moves. You know, they brought on players like Hat and CZ. They took Indy from the sub role and they brought him on the main role. But the thing that doesn't really matter is there's scheduling conflicts throughout this entire stage for this roster. You know, some days Mikey's there, some days he's not there, some days Karn's there, some days he's not there. So who's actually playing on this roster today? I guess we're gonna have to find out in the game, because as I've been informed, there will be a couple subs. Who's being subbed out? Not too sure. I believe we're going to be seeing the likes of Whitlock and Whitlock and Wi-Fi in this game. Other than that, you know, pretty good pickups coming out from the side of Karn Co. You know, you've got Hat coming in. He's an up and coming T3 player. You know, a lot of teams really wanted this team. You know, Nocturnes tried to get him, and then we also saw from talking with Mr. B, TTK also tried to get him. And then you've got CZ. He was on Aqualix back in SCS, I think season 2, where he just went on an absolute tear. If you go look up his stats in SCS, like, they're ridiculous. He's like plus 35, really good entry differential, just an absolute impact player for Aqualix in SCS. And then, you know, Indy coming back in. Indy's always been, you know, a pretty decent player. Now he's coming back into a primary role. He's going to have a little bit more time on his hands, and we're going to see a lot of him. And overall, you know, I don't know if it's an improvement from stage 1. I think it's more of like a lateral movement. But overall, you know, some pretty good pickups, some new gunners coming into the scene. We're going to be able to get their Challenger League debut today.
I feel like you got to do something, though, because when you come in 9th, and they were flirting with relegation, a few teams were, mind you, not just this team alone, but a few teams that even played well. And this is how tough and competitive it is. These shakeups this stage were necessary for a lot of teams. But let's talk about TookTheKids, because Cookies, I mean, outside of Mr. Biblical, the guy who's been tried and true, steady throughout the stage, we don't really know what to expect from this team.
Like I said, Gavini.
I believe it's called Gavin. Like, he just has an eye.
Oh, it's okay. Gavin. I don't know who he is. Honestly, I haven't seen him in any other leagues. I like to watch, like, the San Francisco Challenge League, all those leagues. I like to watch it. I still don't know who he is. Okay, so this guy came out of nowhere. Trist had some good IGL calls. He co-IGL'd alongside Mr. B last stage. Okay, but for the most part, Trist was stinky last stage. Okay, they dropped him. They didn't want him back. It just so happened, we need Trist to have a roster to even be able to play this stage. So he's back. And now you've got, who else? A Packer? It's just, there's no stability. It's as stable as, you know, I'm not going to say it, that would be an SFW, but it's not very stable right now. But you do have Mr. B, like I said. I think he's actually on the tier 1 watch list in terms of IGLs.
Mhm.
He's very solid. He's very confident. They're really going to have to rely on that today. That's for sure.
Karn Co, I feel like we could copy and paste the critical points for them. What are your thoughts on them? Because it's a toss-up as well. These teams are taking big risks to try to get themselves into that picture of, let's say, the top 4, or really like kind of the ones that separate themselves from the bunch.
I don't know if they're trying to reach top 4. I mean, obviously that's the goal of everyone. But if I was going to, give them realistic expectations, I'd be looking at both of these teams like we're just trying to survive this stage. Both of them are basically pug stacks at this point.
Mhm.
TTK, they made their roster moves on the deadline, and Karn Co, they're playing with a sub. So the biggest thing that's going to be happening between these two teams is which team can adapt and overcome and play the pug stack better. And I'm kind of leaning towards the side of TTK here a little bit because Mr.
Mhm.
B, he does have that IGL experience. But then on the side of Karn Co, they just got some really young gunners that just popped into the scene. I really like what I'm hearing from the side of from Karn Co on the side of Hat and CZ. So I think it's going to be who can respond better on the attack, who can respond with the picks, who can make sure that they're adapting to like the randomness that's going to be happening from the defensive side. If they're able to kind of like finesse these picks and work these picks and stay on top of the game, that's the team
Mhm.
that's going to be pulling out here. And I think that purely comes down to IGLing on both sides.
I would have to imagine, Cookies, with so many question marks as we get into the map veto, you have to imagine that both of these teams are probably gonna, I would think, go somewhere they're comfortable. Well, okay, Clubhouse is off the board, so maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about.
You know, I'd wager to say do I know what I'm talking about? Both these teams should, in theory, be so much more different this stage. That I think going back to stage like how they played or how they were last stage on them, I'm not even gonna talk about it. I don't think it's valid to whatever TTK did last stage. It's just totally irrelevant. This team is completely rejuvenated as much as you could literally do it between stages. Karn's team, I will say, we talk about it a lot. If you can disrupt their very straightforward style. They're the type of team, if they set up, they have it dry ran, they have it ready to go, they'll rock your world. They've also been really bad on Cafe. That's always been one of their bans. But looking at what they've banned, I would say that kind of aligns with that philosophy has aligned with what they've banned. They're not trying to play border against Mr. V. You're not going to be able to set up any sort of attack if you're Karn's team on that map. And I'm actually curious what they banned last. So let's again stop the foreplay tango and show us the last 2 maps. Where are we going? Like I said, Chalet, you're not gonna be able to set up real well in Chalet either, honestly, against whatever Mr. B has for teammates. So Oregon's a really stable map for Karn's team, I feel like. And of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. I think this is a good map for both these teams. Like we're talking about this pug stack kind of gameplay. Oregon's a map that's like a pickup, it's a plug and play kind of map.
Yeah.
Anybody knows how to play that map. Everyone understands the roles for the most part, what they're responsible for. I mean, it's probably one of the most played maps in all of Rainbow Six. We call it an equalizer map for that exact reason. It's really simple to IGL. The takes are very structured and methodical. So I think for both of these teams, there's actually a really good map coming up from both sides. I just want to check my notes here real quick. So I believe Karn Co has been successful. Like both these teams have the exact same record, almost the exact same record on this map. I think the difference is I think TTK won this in overtime once more than Karn Co lost this in overtime once more. So it's basically the same record. Both teams are very comfortable on this map. I expect this to be an absolute barn burner of a
Well, looking at the predictions, this is a tough one when it comes down to our predictions because there's so many unknown quantities, not just, excuse me, in the roster changes, but Tanner, the unknown, we still have unknown quantities with Karn Co. I'm going to change mine to TookTheKids on this one because not knowing up until this last minute, even what roster we're looking at going into this matchup for Karn Co., I think you have a better job, Cookies, looking over at the side of TookTheKids with someone like Mr. B to bring stability, that ability to bring stability. Whew, not even trying to rhyme there, to essentially a new roster.
Right. And, I actually want to piggyback off what you said, first, in terms of the win loss percentage on Oregon. The kids should have beaten, coulda, shoulda, woulda. I know. They should have beaten LSR on Oregon last stage. Ended up, because they got smoked by Kenta. The guy dropped 100 kills on him.
You got to watch out for that.
Also, I voted Karn's team because I figured Karn's team everyone would, they called off work and they're ready to play on Saturdays, Sundays. I don't know. I don't know. They don't have the full roster, so I don't want to pick them anymore. I want TookTheKids. I think Karn's team is just going to have a little too much coagulating to have to do live in the moment, and that's not really Karn's strength. I think Mr. British and his team take this one.
I'm sticking to my prediction here. I mean, I don't want to, but I'm going to be different, so I'm going to do it for you guys. So, sure, I'm 0% so far in the day. It's not looking good for me. I have no idea what's going on.
Just keep making the sacrifices, and we'll keep reaping the rewards. But let's get into it. Third match of the day. We'll throw it once again back over to Fellow and Lynx to take it away. We're going to Oregon. It's steady. It's ready.
I mean, listen, I'm going to be real, guys, in case you haven't been able to tell so far. This game, it's not going to be like one-shot LG. It's not going to be like the rent-free LSR game we saw earlier. This game, it's going to be a little silly. It's going to be a little weird, but you know what, John? I think it's going to be a good time. Let's get into it. Let's see who could come out on top between Karn Co and TTK. I would like it to be known, I am actually also, to give more work to Preston behind the scenes, I am going to change my prediction to Karn Co. You don't got, change my prediction to TTK. You don't have to, flash it up on the screen, but, I'm feeling it.
It has now been said, therefore it must happen.
Exactly.
I'm just glad that I'm glad that Jim actually changed his prediction to TTK, so I actually don't end my day with a 0% prediction rate. So already looking pretty good. Fingers crossed, that is. Not a superstitious guy, but maybe today might change that. I think today, for this matchup, it's going to mostly be a battle of IGLs. I mean, you've got Karn, you've got also Mr. B as well. Those have been the main core of both Karn Co. Obviously, for that team, it's in the name. And then you've got Mr. B, who has changed this. Yeah, he has changed this roster 80 times to try to make it work. So he's hoping that whatever he's throwing at the wall, it's finally going to stick. And what is going to stick in the ban phase so far, Thatcher and Finka, makes a lot of sense, and the third one is going to be Cade. So far, nothing too shocking.
Yeah, getting the Finka off the board in what is probably going to be the puggiest of games of today, probably a safe bet just across the board. If Oregon is an equalizer, that ban is an equalizer between these two teams. Cade, and then, again, Azami following up. Again, given the state of these two teams in this match in particular, a solid ban to come through. So we'll see how this goes on Oregon. No Finka, no Azami off the board. At Thatch and Cade, that's whatever. That's old news. Those are the two I'm looking at to really change the pace. That does mean, though, John, that Valkyrie is up. And if the style of game that we've been painting this as is how it's going to be, Valkyrie could shift the tides a little bit for who can play off that op better.
Mr. B might be trying to get a little active in this round, or at least just do what I've been mentioning a couple times when Valkyrie has been on the board, just sitting on cams, feeding info to your teammates, being like, hey, Gav, it'd be a pretty good time to go swing this, because there's a guy just on his camera. He's like, all right, sure, there's a kill. That's probably going to tip the tide very heavily into whatever team can utilize this information game properly, especially when you have some pretty much well-known IGLs, again, such as Carnage and Mr. B playing against one another. That's really going to be the deciding factor, I can imagine, for most of this best of one.
By the way, I just want to let this be known, because I learned this today. Mr. B's name is not Mr. British. I didn't know this. I just assumed that, he's British. His name is Mr. B. I assumed that Mr. British. I was wrong. That's not his name. And frankly, I think that's a disservice to all of us in the CL community.
Well, it helps me forget that he's actually British. Because I think Mr. B's a really cool guy. That's the one negative that he has. Genius, really fun guy to talk with. British. That's the only negative, really. You can't come with anything else.
CJ was really hyping up Mr. B in the pre-show.
Mr. Biblical.
I think Mr. B's a solid IGL, but CJ was really talking him up. Hey, we'll see though if he's able to come out over Karn Co. See if maybe all that praise is worthwhile. Also, Hoax, by the way, is Hat. That's Hat. He just changed his name. I feel like we got to clarify 18 different things between these two teams. Maybe Karn Co. Call this a segue, John. Maybe Karn Co can clarify the early round and maybe find some revealing holes in TookTheKids' defense.
Well, especially if someone's actually droning out Hat. I don't think that happened. I'm pretty sure he just droned himself in, then he got shot and he just walked in the building, but hasn't been detected so far. Trist almost gets shot in the back via the lobby double door, but is unfazed. Spots the player close to Classroom, but loses a gunfight as they were already tagged from that player in double door. CZ, just barely alive, wins the opening duel, and the Jaeger is already down for the fight.
taking down one of the roamers as well. It's a player you don't have to worry about later on down in the site. Hat can also just sit in this double door, and kind of like we saw Dexter do earlier on Theme Park, just wait, see if maybe somebody from TookTheKids bites, takes the gunfight, and what do you know? Right as I talk about it, Woos peeks out, takes a gunfight, doesn't die, but is put down on the floor, will be revived. Another one crosses inside of the closet. Another member from TookTheKids is put to low HP by Hat's LMG. Right now, the defense very much worse for wear because of Zofia alone.
Once again, Oaks is now, or Hat is going to be able to eliminate Mr. B. Gavini eventually steps up, getting rid of CZ, but all defenders except for Packer are on incredibly low HP, and it's still a dominant showing by Karn Co so far. Literally, it's just the Malusi to put in work, but it's still the main advantage for Karn Co as they continue to hit the site.
Ooh, excellent shot by Packer onto Wi-Fi inside of Pillar, but with Gavini on low HP, it's likely all going to come down to him. Never mind, Whitlock not aware of his presence, but Hat's been going huge with this LMG so far, and 1 bullet out of 50 will be the end of Gavini, but I imagine a lot more will be expended on a lengthy pre-fire. Plenty of time as well, but no diffuser control for Hat right now. Does not have it in his hands, but he has the intel in his position! Boom goes the dynamite. Hat takes round number 1.
And off the back of a 4K, essentially, and pretty decent coordination overall, being able to self-drone himself to work his way in through shower hallway, stack up with the rest of his teammates over near lobby. They get control of laundry. They begin to work their way around the map by rotating near the E-box drop / pillar in general. And overall, it went pretty well because they were just still able to isolate, and it looked like they had a pretty good read on how TTK were going to play in that round. They were down a man, they had to work a pick, so they just waited for TTK to swing, and although it didn't guarantee them kills every single time, it got a lot of defenders to very low HP, which still put themselves in a very dominant position.
One thing I did not consider in switching my prediction to TTK, by the way, is that Hat is like the platonic form of LMG players, so probably should have weighed that a little bit more in my thought process when I switch predictions. But hey, maybe he'll cool off in a little bit. We are going to dorms, so TookTheKids rotating the site from what they were on previously, and maybe that's fair. It was only really Gavini and Packer a little bit doing work in that round for TookTheKids, so trying things in dorms could be a little bit better. See a bandit coming through, getting some hard breach denial on the bedroom wall and probably the attic wall as well, and also extension down below for Karn Co to cut their teeth on.
Well, now we've got the full-fledged extension over on the middle floor. Sometimes you'll see at least one defender over near freezer. Maybe they fall all the way down into the basement if they're expecting someone to clear out through blue bunker, or they just use it kind of as a highway system to go run around the map, be able to rotate, go for a flank on one of the many stairways you see that connect into the basement floor. It's just a matter of the situation you're currently thrown at during the round itself. For Karn Co, seems like they want to go for the exact same approach, getting someone to aggressively work their way in through shower hallway, granting a lot of map control early on, and potentially working a kill as well, because we've got both Gavini and the smoke of Packer getting aggressive, and Gavini just walks right into CZ's crosshair. Another opening duel won by the Ayana.
Not gonna lie, I thought Gavini was about to smoke CZ off that angle, but one singular bullet does the Malusi in. Excellent shot by CZ. Great pick on the entry as well. They can now start fully focusing on Woos inside of security, as one of the players he was relying on for support, the only player he was relying on for support, at least on the same plane as him, now gone. He's got to watch the kitchen doorway. He's got to be worried about the doorway behind him by top freezer. A lot of things that Woos now has to worry about. Mr. B doesn't some work, compensates for the earlier kill, compensates very effectively, compensates incredibly well with 3 kills for TookTheKids. CZ gets a second, but Packer smokes Hat off of White. It's now only left up to the one-hit wonder so far, CZ on the entry game.
Still has plenty of time to potentially utilize their Gemini replicator. Maybe go for a Gemini bait as well, potentially, but it might not work out in a 1 versus 3. Someone would eventually catch on to that, or maybe just blindly walking up the white stairs to try to isolate a 1 versus 1. Someone peeks in through the single wall rotation, brings down CZ to just a sliver of HP, and although there's a lot of time on the board, aren't many resources left here for CZ to work this 1v3 into a potential clutch.
Now he's on 1 HP as well. Does have some intel on some of the players inside of the site. He might be able to anticipate somebody playing around the diffuser as well. Ooh, does spot one. Chris loses his life to the Yana again. 2 rounds in a row, though much later than before. Maybe he's got it. I mean, crazier things have happened. He's able to burn out another smoke. He doesn't have to worry about any of the toxic gas being what does him in. But he has a crossfire to worry about. Both remaining players who TookTheKids looking towards white stairs. Final smoke canister goes out. That's 10 seconds. CZ has to wait. And they know he's probably going to push this way. Have a good idea that once the smoke canister goes, CZ has to make a play. He's just baiting for kills right now, hoping TookTheKids make a mistake. It doesn't look like they're going to make one. Packer just waits and gets his kill.
TTK at least able to find something mostly off the back of Mr. B. One thing to note is CJ mentioned, of course, the world-renowned San Francisco Challenger League, the T3 league that I'm very well known for being in. He mentioned at least just the league in general. One thing to note as well, that TTK, they actually play in that league, and they went up against a pretty well T3 team and didn't do all that hot, except for Mr. B, more on the IGL/supportive role. And it seems like so far we're already seeing that trend kind of fall through, except for more or less Gavini over in round 1 and a little bit of extra help from Packer, but we probably could have seen Mr. B at least probably find a 4th in that bandit role last round. So if we just continue to see a lot of that, those single heroic plays, just mostly by Mr. B or Gavini on a round that's pretty much already lost, this could be pretty troubling for TTK moving forward in this matchup, but that is still way too early to call. It is only round 3 after all.
By the way, to be the hall monitor, yes, we do know it's called Solar Flare Challenger League. We're just making a joke.
Solar Flare Competitive League.
Oh, is it actually Competitive League? That was not a bit. I actually thought it was Challenger League.
Wow.
Well, listen, it's not my fault. When I see CL, you know, my job, I kind of default to it in my head.
No, that'd be too smart. No. Well, it wouldn't be smart for
bad.
SFCL. That would be just straight up like just stealing. So.
Oh, I mean, no, they got the S and the F. It would not be stealing. That would that'd probably fly in a court of law.
Good thing no one's there to sue him.
That's true. Nobody's suing Tofu. And I'll be happy about that. But anyway, back to the round. All right, well, I was going to say, Hat might get smoked off this angle, like we saw Gavini fail to do, and he does. Trist on a very long angle takes down the goated LMG player, at least given round number 1. We still have Gavini retaking this position. So he'll just shoot a drone, then probably, back off.
A good play, got him hit by the Malusi. Already done a fair amount of damage, and when you're going for an anchor-orientated setup, you don't need to really roam for all that long. You waste about a minute, break some drones, sometimes you get a kill, like we saw by Triss landing a clean shot on the LMG-wielding player of Hat, and you go back to site. You've got all these ADSs, the magnets, shields on top of that too. You've got a lot to work with. And now that you have a lot of that explosivity gone too, because those explosive lifelines are now gone, it leaves just the nades and some Rotero drones left. It's pretty possible that if TTK land another kill, maybe on that Flores or CZ as well, this could be a very defendable site, not only for the 5-on-3, but just the lack of utility that Karn Co has left.
We also have an excellent Valk cam to influence Gavini's play if he wants to start peeking into Freezer. Exact intel on CZ's position right now, but he spots the Valk cam, so if Gavini wants to make use of it, his intel will now be delayed, and he'll have to actively gather anymore via sound cues or via somebody else. EMP goes off and jams that Yana clone. Thankfully, with also Hat off the board, no presence at the laundry double right now, so TookTheKids can rest patiently unless Wi-Fi decides to try and steal some of his teammates' energy.
Only able to break the Banshee so far. A flash flies him through to try to blind Gavini, but he seems pretty safe behind that bomb chassis. The nade just barely misses, hits the lip of that soft wall. So once again, Gavini will stay pretty comfortable until a Rotero drone flushes him out, but no one's here to push him. It's just immediately back on the drone for Wi-Fi, so he remains behind the bomb chassis for a little while longer.
Ooh, CZ just face-checking that angle. You can guarantee someone's playing right there, but the exact position eluded CZ's senses, and he loses his life despite doing a lot of damage to Mr. B. Karn Co have done a great job taking his time and focusing on the position Gavini's playing, but in terms of actually getting anything out of it, that has been less than stellar. It's almost like everyone is working around Karn Co instead of Karn Co working around the positions they know TookTheKids are playing. Whitlock now on 1 HP, the impacts miss, but all the guns trained on his position with intel to boot are ready to take the lead from Karn Co, and take the lead they do, with Woos rounding that round out.
Starting off strong with Trist winning that opening duel against Hat and having still tons of information and at least team play to guarantee they can hold down Freezer. You had someone playing for the wide swing over into the double wall from Freezer leaning in a laundry room. You had somebody close tucked behind the blue locker in Freezer. It really was a match made in heaven, especially since the utility game by Karn Co was very weak and just poorly timed. Wi-Fi did a really good job of attempting to clear out Gavini, but because we didn't have anyone getting aggressive for the swing, because there was still someone directly in Freezer, and because the wall wasn't opened up at all, Gavini could just walk away from the Rotero drone and then just go back behind the bomb chassis, still allowing that crossfire to be a nuisance for Karn Co, which it ended up being their own demise as they could not even get outside of Freezer in round number 3.
First time so far we will see a tertiary site come through, mostly because TookTheKids decided to repeat basement after their loss on round number 1. Imagine we'll see a roam here, see a lot of coordinated site play as well. Not necessarily coordinated. TookTheKids could certainly still botch this round or in the early or the late game. But they have operators that can mitigate that potential fact. 2 Evil Eyes on the board, some castle barricades. Not so much for the on-site play to help the off-site players, you know, waste some time, guide the attackers for where they might want to push. Pretty standard though, TookTheKids, all things considered. So if we were talking about earlier, how Oregon is kind of a map where you don't have to be on your IGL in game 100%, this should still be pretty solid for Karn Co to unpack.
Karn Co opting to still bring out a boatload of soft destruction, this time now having Whitlock over on the Ashe, and not having a, you know, a normal orthodox pick of, you know, that Sledge, for example, or Buck. Instead, they're just rocking multiple sets of, you know, breaching charges if they want to go for that vertical play on the top floor, which 6 should be enough, especially when you already have an opening duel as a win, so you can get a lot of map control at a pretty good chunk of time. CZ like the first one, but Mr. B holding in through the soft wall connected between site and backstairs actually manages to shut down the Ayana and equalizes here in the first minute.
CZ's been so far very solid on the entry game, but excellent shot by Mr. B. Taking a little bit of a gamble, but it paying off by taking down CZ. Overall, solid start for TookTheKids. We can see what Karn Co going for, though, while accidentally puts Mr. B to 1 HP. Maybe not accidentally, but definitely luckily putting Mr. B to 1 HP. He's now 1 player inside of Meeting will certainly feel dissuaded from taking any more fights with players inside of green.
Still not able to open up the attic wall just yet, and just now ready to try to break open this wall leading into the meeting room, but there's still a mute jammer that has not been destroyed, but with the wall directly next to it being soft and open, Hack can just spot it out and allow the Thermite to go and do his job in a matter of moments. Still trying to get green hallway control as well. Karn Co definitely have a lot left to accomplish, but at least they're in the right places on the map to do that.
Currently just sitting down behind some of these Osa shields, still kind of struggling to push on forward from what they initially got. See a concussion go in, the exothermic go off, or a lifeline go in, then the exothermic go off. So they will open up that stage wall. Now they can make use of that Osa shield. They can plant all the way in front of Big Tower Stairs. They also know that Packer is playing close on that doorway on the opposite side of that drone hole, where there's not really much Hat can do right now to take him down. Just wait, hope that maybe Packer crosses in front of it, but beyond that, no nades to work with since CZ was taken down early, so you just gotta hope he walks his feet in front of those and you can take him down.
30 seconds left to go. I'm really shocked that we have the hatch reinforced actually too, so anyone on that top floor cannot really like actively play for the plant now.
That's a good point.
It has to be something more direct. Thankfully, with Evil Eyes potentially being on the board still for Woos, they have something to stop this, and a Nitro Cell by Packer, which is bound to land soon.
Oh! Beautiful shot by Wi-Fi. That's the round saved right there. Hat gets 2 kills with that LMG, and even though he's felled, this is still looking like a great round for Karn Co. As the plant goes down, Whitlock, no, it's not. I thought it was Wi-Fi that hopped up, but he falls to Woos' LMG. That leaves Whitlock, who got that kill, trying to save Wi-Fi's life. Trapped in the 1v1 with a Maestro, but with no hatch to play off of, it's now working against Whitlock in the post plant. Woos doesn't have to worry about the attic angle and only worry about back tower stairs. He falls off the plant, knows that Whitlock is coming right down. He can still bait. He can still play the time. As he's sticking, he falls off. Whitlock is playing this so incredibly well. Woos will have to go up for the retake. There's an Osha shield in his way. You can shoot his knee. You can pre-fire. You can do anything but walk up. Whitlock still wins it out in the end, and we're back to tied between Karn Co and TookTheKids.
And a very awkward round altogether, I might add. Beautifully done by Wi-Fi to shoot out the Nitro Cell, which after the Evil Eyes had been destroyed and after a majority of that site presence was taken care of, that was the only saving grace that TTK had, especially since no one could play on the hatch. Karn Co, I think, realizing that, just lightly cleared out the top floor to where they would have a line of sight to stop anybody from getting aggressive, but because they're not attacking over near kitchen, for example, they don't really need to do a lot of vertical. They just have to get enough control over in back tower where they can comfortably push into sight and get that plant down, and with no denial for the plant, it was pretty darn comfortable, especially when they had a Talon shield with perfect coverage not only for the plant, but also after the plant had gone down for the Ashe to win the 1v1.
Yeah, just great foresight by Whitlock. You know, not committing too much to peeking the Maestro, pulling back exactly when you need it, and when you know that the Maestro, if he wants any chance of winning this, has to go for the retake, just play behind that talent shield you set up. Excellent game plan by Whitlock right there. TookTheKids will rotate over to dorms, not wanting to repeat. Meeting and basement not unlocked yet. Still need to wait one more round for that to happen, but this was a round that TookTheKids won, albeit, John, with a biblical 3K by Mr. B early on.
Yeah, Mr. Biblical, yeah, as we would like to call him before knowing his name. I think we've made that joke a lot. That would be off the back of CJ. He loves the word biblical. His favorite of all time. And I guess Mr. B's favorite op so far has been the Bandit because that's the one he's had the most success on overall. In terms of success, Chris has not found all that much here. Playing on the aggressive Jaeger role, he has found the entry at least one time, but as of now, he hasn't received a lot of pressure towards him just yet. Again, it's just been that solo clear done by, I believe, CZ, but I could be incorrect about that. Looks like a majority of the offense is pushing in through master bedroom, trying to get that closet wall opened up as soon as possible. And Wi-Fi, he's already in the middle of armory, so that cutoff angle is established as well in case anyone wants to wide swing over near dear doorway.
Drones flying in. Through small tower right now. Whether they've spotted Trist is determined. He'll reveal his position with some shots and then retreat back up white stairs. Vini, he won't retreat. He'll push forward down freezer, not fully down. He'll just play on the landing at the moment. So this spot where CZ took him down before, albeit the Melusi was a little bit pushed far up, and CZ got a very nice shot onto the Melusi. But neither Woos nor Gavini are giving away the game too early. Lucy will rotate into security, but still no action taken by Karn Co outside of some hard breaching.
Decent time frame so far for TTK to still be holding both kitchen and security. They don't even need to overextend. Just wait for Karn Co to make that first move, waste a majority of their utility, and that denies a good half of Karn Co's offense just by sitting around and looking pretty.
Yeah, you don't need to get too over-aggressive if the onus is on Karn Co to push forward and to clear you out of both security and kitchen. Just chill out, wait, let them make the mistakes or let them come to you. Right now, Karn Co are starting to make inroads upwards, but CZ takes down one member down below. Still need to start focusing towards the site with 1 minute remaining. There's 3 players in bedroom, 1 on top right. CZ can keep this guy isolated downstairs, but wow! Oh no, it's a trade! I was gonna say, that's a big impact frag by Gavini. Because him and CZ trade, it's now only the 3 remaining site players. It does leave CZ gone, but had to maybe provide some support on white stairs, and there's still the remaining 3 Karn Co members outside of the bedroom wall who can start going in. Mr. B will rip and throw his C4. Nobody shoots it, but it goes wide nonetheless. Karn reacts to Trist in time, but does not react to Mr. B. Somehow misses that one, even though the Bandit was staring him in the face. Mr. Biblical, the 1v2 now, only on 1 HP. Hat does him in with the pistol from white stairs. Karn Co take the lead.
I'm really shocked that we had Trist actually get hyper-aggressive and going for the attic swing, maybe not trying to allow that plant to actually go down, especially since we had coverage over into the top of white as well. But I thought there were still toxic smokes left in the pocket of Packer, which was really the main reason why I was shocked that we had Trist going for that swing when it was an even 3-on-3 for just a brief moment. Karn Co still holding on strong, having that multifaceted approach, because like we saw with Gavini, getting that 1-for-1 trade directly, that still left Hat alive, so he could walk up white and provide extra coverage when the site execute actually went down. And because of that, Karn Co retake the lead.
And if, of course, if maybe Hat is able to have a little bit more impact in this round, could even go up 4-2 on their attacks. They were able to win round number 1, which was basement, but a lot of it was built off of just somebody, in this case Hat, sitting at double door and able to get quite a few kills from that position. Hat ended up getting a 4K overall, but even if he hadn't gotten those final 2 kills, he already did a lot of damage simply by lurking at that double door, putting 2 players to 1 HP, and then finishing them off later. It was when Karn Co were forced to actually push through freezer and actually push through laundry instead of just having kills given to them by playing the waiting game. They struggled heavily to push TookTheKids out of their positions.
Basement floor for the potential final time for TookTheKids, and it seems like they're still going for that anchor-based kind of setup, but still having some sort of light roam game established for the early portions of the round to, again, just waste resources by Karn Co, and maybe, just maybe, win a gunfight off the bat. Both Trist and Gavini are playing slightly in tandem, one inside a dining room and the other down shower hallway, and Trist read CZ like a book. He's been trying this play almost every single round, and because of that, the Valk finds not only 1, but 2 kills, expecting the refrag by Hat, and TookTheKids take a great lead.
quite an excellent lead at that. Trista, you know, has been having a whatever game so far, but those are two very impactful kills. Both entries for Karn Co gone, and the player who almost single-handedly won that basement defense in round number 1, also off the board as well. Everyone else on Karn Co, excluding maybe Whitlock, have been struggling. Wi-Fi and Karn rarely finding opportunities to put up numbers. I mean, Wi-Fi did some good job with the Rotero drones on basement before. I will give him that. Now he's on Sledge, who that impact is really only going to be felt with those frag grenades. In the 3v5, you're going to have to start relying on more than just utility if you want to win this.
Well, Banshee gets destroyed eventually. Still a few pieces of magnets, for example, over on the board, and that freezer player hasn't really been pushed back all that much. Still tons of natural cover and still tons of time left to kill on this round. Eventually, Karn Co will begin to work their way lower in the building, but they are met quickly by Woos, holding down a nasty angle, eliminating Whitlock, and stacking up this man advantage even more than what we saw earlier.
And now the two worst performers for Karn Co's attacking half so far, they're the ones that have to somehow find 5 kills. Wi-Fi does spot one player on cams, and even if Gavini is not on cams, an aid will surely be able to take down the Melusi if there are no ADSs or magnets covering that position. That's a big if with a minute remaining and both Jaeger and Lamai on the board. Might be somebody taking that washing machine rotate. Wi-Fi loses a little bit of HP to them and doesn't fight back because Chris doesn't give up that angle. He instead goes prone, sends out a C4, but Wi-Fi has pulled very far back at this point. He'll throw his nade in, but there are those ADSs and likely those magnets as well, eating up one of his nades, but a well-timed and well-placed shot onto Trisp. Maybe brings a little bit of hope into the equation. But as Gavini swings, Wi-Fi falls to 1 HP. Packer finishes him off. It's Karn left to do, I'm not certain, John.
Just do everything, I guess. With 30 seconds to go, low on HP, low on info. You got flashes, but with magnets and ADS across the board, I mean, you're not probably going to connect much of those flashes.
Oh!
But, 2 people line up for Carnage. Makes it a 1 versus 2. This has become much more winnable for Labana, but still, the odds are stacked heavily against him.
A disgusting final shot, but you don't really have time to be droning Karn. Any bit of intel helps, but there's only 10 seconds left, and a final smoke canister goes out. You gotta push on through that doorway, take the damage, but he can't, unfortunately. He's too low health to make it through. And despite a very impressive set of 2 kills, they're impactless in the end.
Yeah, getting choked out eventually by the Toxic Babe, and seems things are evened up now, fully. In the first half. I mean, Tanner did jokingly say this match is probably going to be a barn burner. He might have been pretty much directly on the money in this case because we had a completely evened out half going now into round number 7. But I feel like with Attacker Repick, you see 3-3 splits more often. It's not even just a team-based thing. It's just now how the game works because the attackers can make a lot of defender-based maps a little more favorable because they can tailor a perfect composition to what the defense is bringing out. But so far, only a couple of repicks have been on the board of TTK and Karn Co. They're not opting for anything too out of the ordinary. In fact, they are mirroring the composition that TTK brought when they were defending this basement site countless times.
TookTheKids will switch things up, though. They'll bring an IQ to counter the Valkyrie, which wasn't something we really saw from Karn Co. Well, also partially because TookTheKids ran a Valkyrie a few times, but it wasn't a mainstay in their lineup. But on basement, they certainly ran it, and there were some useful spots, like the one placed in Freezer Stairs. We'll see as he did find it out later. Denying cams like that, or cameras in general, that maybe go unnoticed in the late round, and you've got to prioritize. You can't be focused on finding a cam. You got to be focused on hitting the site. An IQ in the early round can mitigate that potential damage by just nipping it in the bud, going forward with being able to spot those cams and deal.
Only problem, though, is besides that, the gadget can be a little useless, but still, with how important the black eye cameras have been in a couple of these rounds to just feed information constantly throughout the entire round, it does make sense to want to try and hard counter that. And besides that, as long as they're able to break the black eye cameras, it can't be too big of a hassle, I suppose, just to bring up the IQ here and there, maybe force Karn Co away from that information operator. TTK starting out clearing all the way through small tower like we saw Karn Co do multiple times on their attacks to maybe work their way in through freezer, and Woos by himself is able to get rid of Wi-Fi early on, just able to quick flip near the armory door and shut down the Valkyrie pretty early in round number 7.
Wi-Fi unfortunately gets turned on right there. Unlucky. Gotta, accept that. Push on forward. Whitlock is really no opportunity for him to get turned on. He can just chill on these back stairs, maybe destroy a drone or two, then head back down towards the site. And all the work for TookTheKids has pretty much been done, at least on this middle floor. They've cleared out one of the only players actually roaming. They can now focus on getting these hatches and pushing down into positions like Freezer if they want to. So Hat is playing a little bit aggressively. And Hat, as well as Wi-Fi, definitely been having a lot better of a game. Ooh, almost takes down Woozy, re-challenges the angle. So does the Malusi, and both of them fall.
A hilarious tag team accomplishment by TTK, granting them a 5-on-2, almost a 5-on-1. But Whitlock thankfully slows down at least Gavini, putting him in the dirt, giving a potential redemption arc here for Karn Co. But still, 4 versus 2, and all the time in the world for TTK to just drone out and start throwing in their util. It's a very tall task to try to accomplish with Karn Co.
It is a very tall task, but only a minute remaining. That's 30 seconds. Karn can still burn. First one goes out. Knows somebody's playing on those back stairs. He'll even get a little bit aggressive, but TTK are fully anticipating this fact. He'll instead go over towards the bunker doorway, start looking towards over it, but nobody from TTK is actually fighting yet. They're not getting too aggressive. Right as I say that, Mr. B drops. Both him and Woos make their entry into the site, but there's Karn inside of Elbow. Whitlock too, but he falls. It's Karn going huge, but only 2 kills for him once again. TTK get their first round on attack.
I really liked how Carnage tried taking initiative on that round, establishing choke points that TTK could not go through. And if we saw a little bit of better team play with him and the Jaeger, I feel like they could have completely stopped anyone walking in through bunker doorway. They could have put all their attention pretty much on anyone dropping down E-box, and maybe even had a chance to put that in a 2v2 and a pretty much winnable position at that point. But just the timing of when they were going for swings and how much that Karn Co had to juggle in a 4v2, again, it was just an almost impossible position to come back from, and impossible it was because we did not see Karn Co take a 4th rounder so far.
See if the attempt goes better. See Wi-Fi adjust. No Valkyrie on the board this time. We'll go for the Thorn and those Razor Blooms, which you do get a nice little deployable shield, so you can play with a shield inside of Elbow if you want, and also in a shield watching either Freezer, maybe watching Laundry as well. You can rotate it either which way, depending on where TookTheKids decide to go from. So sure, no intel, but a little bit better utility if you want to focus on holding directly on the site, which appears to be what Karn Co are going for. But John, since Hat is in the lobby, I still imagine somebody somewhere, Hat and CZ, somebody somewhere is going to get aggressive.
It just makes sense. Match made in heaven, I suppose. Yeah. Maybe not Hat. Maybe he'll be more of the X factor later in the round because currently they're rocking the Momai, which you need to keep a lot of those magnets in your pocket to let them build up over time and then throw them out later for the util denial.
Well,
you could get aggressive because 1.5, and it is Hat, so yeah, he'll go for the ladder.
Yeah, he will actually go for the ladder. I didn't even realize he was peeking that long hallway, but he'll back off after doing that. But he did try to play aggressively on those freezer stairs last time, and well, we all saw how that worked out. It looks like you might be trying to repeat it again, or at least repeat the play again. Hopefully not the result.
Trying to find at least something early on, then falls back. Was surprised that Wi-Fi wasn't actually trying to be maybe the first initiative there, because you just have all your util put down. You can kind of do what you want in the Thorn. Maybe feed yourself information with those Razor Blooms, because you basically use them for information. You're not going to assume that they're going to find a kill, especially in one of the highest levels of play. But, oh well. I'm not the one playing. I'm not going to be all that judgy, I suppose. First minute off the board in TTK. Still pretty darn good pace. And now with the Razor Blooms being on the board as well, with the IQ scanner active, not only can you find some of those extra pieces of utility, like you would normally with a black eye camera if they were on the board, you can find those Razor Blooms as well to make them pretty much ineffective.
Or some are placed in hard-to-reach spots, like one, for example, placed next to that E-box hatch. That's something, if you want to take it down before you drop, you're going to have to nade. Not really something that you can shoot. You can spot it with that IQ scanner, but you're going to have to use utility to take it down. So still some expenditure required for TookTheKids if they want to be proactive in taking down those Razor Blooms. Hey, knowledge is still better than just going in blind, so still a little bit of an additive bonus with that IQ on the board.
Speaking of knowledge, we have Packer actually beginning to drone his way down and through back stairs, along with the play stacked up near E-box, and someone's getting ready to work their way down through blue bunker as well. This really is just the perfect storm for TTK. They just gotta work a pick and make sure they're not running in blind.
Only have 3 flashes though, so their initial entry definitely not a large window for them to maneuver. They can throw on those flashes, maybe a smoke as well. beyond that, especially once Luce uses this nade, you don't have a lot of time to act. With 2 players in backstairs, 2 players could drop as well. They'll storm on in. Might be too much for Whitlock to deal with. Yeah, he's caught completely off guard by Packer and Gavini pushing in from the back line, and Freezer. CZ put down as well as Wi-Fi gets active. CZ finished off. Still something for Karn Co to do as we've swung back. Never mind. To a 1v1. Came close with this basement round previously. Karn Co don't have control of the diffuser. Trist has that, but only 15 seconds left. He's got to decide, go for the kills or go for the plant. He knows Wi-Fi's in long, but Wi-Fi still wins it! A poor performance up until this point. He redeems himself to bring us back to even between TTK and Karn Co.
And funny enough, as I say it, the opposite happens. You normally don't see a Razor Bloom find any damage on the round, but it ended up killing somebody, forcing a 1v1. Trist with no coverage if he were to go for that plant. He had to get aggressive, and he fell right into the palm of Wi-Fi, exactly where he wanted him to be in that situation, evening us up. Back to 4-4 this time around. And honestly, if they just had the information that a Razor Bloom was there, that could have been played out potentially a little differently, baiting inward towards the door to proc it, then falling back, they don't get any damage. That could have allowed more bodies to be on the board, maybe a 2v1, that way coverage could have been had on that plant, and TTK could have had a 5th round.
But they didn't, John.
But they didn't.
But they did.
Yep. Could have, would have.
Wi-Fi got a 4K in that round. So, how's that for you?
Now I see why he didn't roam, so he could stay alive to go crazy in the final 20. Makes sense.
Exactly. I believe in Kyle. I lived with Kyle for 3 days. I know what this man's capable of. I know what he can do. He's got this in the bag. We'll go to dorms. Maybe he'll have some better luck here after that previous round. We'll also see Trist go to the Nook, which, again, with a couple players from Karn Co playing off-site, might be able to sneak in the middle of them and either get a pick or just wait for CZ or Hat to start getting aggressive and then watching the flank, take them down.
Got TTK potentially maybe going in through the basement on that play, but no, just directly in a small tower. Again, all right, nothing too complex, just getting in and active as quickly as possible. Maybe waiting up for people like Gavini to go help you out, burn some of this utility so you can have your grenades at the ready to go force back Hat completely, for example. Not a bad call at the slightest. First minute just about over and done with. In the background, we heard that exothermic charge detonate, allowing, I believe, the back wall into closet opened up. If not, maybe attic, but with Mr. B over near the master balcony, I could imagine it was actually closet and not anywhere near attic.
Yeah, sadly, with only those exothermics, though, clearing out this kitchen position without security control is a lot harder to do. You can't open up that single panel. You just have to either clear out security and start pushing on in, or hope that Hat peaks so you're able to get a nade in. But of course, you have to clear out that Aruni gate first, and like the previous round, well, there are many flashes on TookTheKids' side, but Triss is like, all right, I'll just activate the Hell Scanner, punch open a hole in the wall, and Hat, you are now dead. CZ also. Now, the only one on the roam down below. He can still waste some time. That security position is open. They can start pushing in and pinching CZ. He's got to fight for his life and find a way out, but doesn't even get a kill before he falls.
Packer fully anticipating that swing brings us into a pretty good advantage once again for TTK. They've got the 5 vs 3. They've got vertical if they need to, still having plenty of grenades to start throwing at the floorboards that Karn Co are sitting underneath. The Jaeger tries to get aggressive, but Wi-Fi is shut down. Gavini brings us in the 5-on-2 and little to nothing stopping this offense from actually getting this plant down and winning the round outright, but Mr. B just gets wall-banged by Whitlock, and now they've got to recover the case.
Not even wall bangs. Just no one was covering him. Not a single person from TookTheKids was watching the attic doorway. Either Mr. B getting a little ahead of himself or somebody wasn't doing their job or there was a flaw in the plan. One of those three things has now resulted in the diffuser being planted, not activated, but just dropped in the middle of sight where the remaining 2 players of Karn Co, even at a reduced number, can watch and play a crossfire off of. Karn and Whitlock still have to rely on accounting for a lot of angles and maybe even getting a little lucky, but a lot of times now wasted, and a post plant was evaded because of that oversight. TookTheKids. Whitlock can watch from concrete right now, swinging this doorway and taking advantage of players, but now that Karn is gone, Whitlock is the only one left. As one swings from his right, he just manages to evade death, but he's got to switch to the pistol. There's LMGs looking his way, plenty of other players looking his way. Gavini switches, and he wins the round in the end. A potential clutch and a definite oversight by TTK, but it doesn't matter, because they win anyway.
And for the past couple of rounds, the entries by TookTheKids have been spot on. It's been giving them a lot of map control early on and has almost granted them 3 rounds in a row. It could have been 4 as well because TTK won round number 6, 7, and just won the 9th one. If it weren't for that Razor Bloom forcing a 1v1 and Trist having to get in a very uncomfortable position, we could have potentially seen match point already just based off of the setups we've been seeing by TTK. Instead of Trist getting hyper aggressive by himself in dining room, he waited for his teammates to take that map control he just gained for them. He rotates around, melees a single wall, and completely catches one of your main roamers of Hat off guard, forcing CZ to go for a hero play, and there's just way too much for him to worry about all at the same time. It's a 5-on-3, and at that point, TTK just put themselves in the driver's seat.
And going back to dorms, if they go with the same setup, I like these changes coming out from Karn Co. We see CZ go to the Wamai. That'll provide a lot more active projectile denial that TookTheKids will have to worry about if they clear him out from down below. And with those Razor Blooms as well, we saw when it came down to the wire, TookTheKids actually faced a lot more damage from those Razor Blooms than we normally see them cause in a lot of rounds. It obviously depends on what Karn Co go for. Right now, we don't even see anybody going downstairs inside of kitchen and security. This will all be focused on the site, but it's still a very useful utility to deal with.
It just slows down the opposition as well because they have to go wait a couple seconds for, the Razor Bloom to fully detonate, break the barbed wire that's probably around it, or the other utility that might not be too far behind those Razor Blooms as well. It just buys Karn Co more time, so if they can keep that roam game alive and they can either fall back or just weaken the oppression that TTK has been ditching out a majority of these rounds, it's going to be pretty helpful utility moving in towards the, the last few moments of this round potentially.
Oh no, we actually do have somebody off-site, and actually we have a few people off-site. Not inside of security. No, you silly boy. It's actually downstairs inside of main lobby right now. Hat smokes Trist outside, but Mr. B finds one of the other players off-site, and that was CZ onto Wamai. So all that hyping up of the magnets I did, you know how Wamai, he's got impact, more and more impact as the round goes on? Well, CZ decided to play aggressive. Now you have like a quarter of the magnets you might have had otherwise.
No impacts as well, although there aren't many spots you can impact her from. I could imagine if you have the, the fan spot opened up through Classroom, you could probably stop Mr. B from doing his job, but he goes above and beyond, as per usual, and actually kills that Wamai player that could have been very impactful later in the round. Seems like for TTK, they're not opting to go for the default push. They actually get the attic wall open up with the help of Mr. B and begin to drone their way in through attic to A, break some utility, and B, potentially try to set up an execute soon.
So nothing going for TookTheKids right now. All 10 drones, all 9 drones still on the board right now. So even though they just lost one, quite a lot of utility for us being almost 2/3 of the way through this round, and it might be paying off. 2 kills going their way right now. Or CZ died earlier due to some, tomfoolery, but Wi-Fi naded from below. Some intel probably helped there unless he was getting a default spot. Even then, good play if he's able to make that work.
Hat potentially trying to go for a flank. Not a bad idea when your options are very limited. Yes, you have the toxic smokes to buy time, but 50 seconds minus 20, you still have a lot to work with just simple arithmetic there. And now that Karn is receiving a lot of heavy fire, most likely we're bound to see some sort of X-Factor play up if we want to see this round salvaged.
Yeah, we see Hat go for that X-Factor play right there. Packer on the back line, now fallen. Moose feeling obligated to push up. Catches Karn with his feet out in the open down below. The dog's out inside of dorms right now, but Whitlock answers back. Cuts down the player in attic, and Mr. B is going for a rotate. Just maybe enough time to make it work, but going on the rappel. What's he doing right here? Diffuser, 20 seconds left, maybe trying to find a pick, going for the kills, it pays off, catches Whitlock mid-rotation, but now he's stuck outside. He's got to rappel in. Hat is focused on white stairs right now, and Gavini's got to push in on 1 HP. He's spotted, but an LMG can't solve being on 1 bullet away from death. Now Mr. B's got a plan. This is Hat's game right here. It's his world and we're living in it. He goes for the swing, but another 4K for Hat in this game between these two teams gives Karn Co another round to keep it even.
And a small misplay by the Zofia as well, not waiting to get her gun back up. She still had her actual primary gadget out, which allowed the Thorn to just shut that down and force a 1v1 for Mr. B. Again, he can no longer go for the plant, and he had to get aggressive, pistol in hand, and having to worry about a shield. I feel like we saw something rather similar a few rounds ago in the first half, but with an Osa rather than a regular shield. But I digress. It still gives the upper hand for Karn Co, and they do not have to look down the gun barrel of match point for another round.
Might be our first overtime of stage 2 if these if these teams aren't careful. We've evaded it so far, had some fairly close games, both teams tied up at various points, and we were 1 round away from OT in our first game between LSR, but the pace this is going right now, John, this is looking like an OT game.
Definitely seems like it, especially when you have just these minute issues happening towards the last 20, 15 seconds, and it's just off to some sort of magical recovery by either Karn Co and TTK, as we've seen it on both sides of the board at this point. And again, the level of play has seemed pretty similar between the two, hence why we have the 5-5. Funny enough, the battle of the IGLs, Mr. B and Carnage, still seems pretty on point, but also the battle of the Gunners, because both TTK and Karn Co have some pretty well-renowned fraggers who have been hitting their shot a majority of these rounds as well.
I mean, Karn Co, I mean, we've had a few 1vx for them so far. Hat having one of them in the previous round. Whitlock has had one as well. Whitlock and Karn specifically. Wi-Fi also having a very big 4K. Obviously, some of these 1vxs are 1v1s, but still able to win out some very close rounds. Karn Co and many of the players on it have been very clutch in this regard. Just will look to do away with one of them very early. He's pushing up the back tower stairs, catches Whitlock, but Whitlock, he is wise to these tricks. He's going to retreat back down and not try to give anything up too early.
He doesn't want to risk the potential of having that 5 versus 4, and also big tower stairs control too. If the call's made and you get the hatch opened up immediately afterwards, you get somebody to rotate down into blue bunker with about 1:30. You waste out the smoke grenades, and it's pretty much just pretty easy access after those smoke grenades go down. But because of that, we still have a pretty slow and methodical take by TTK, as they want to get everything accounted for when going in this next 1:30.
Opening up all of the hatches, getting as much intel as they can. A drone placed on back tower stairs to catch any rotations in the site. TookTheKids very much not trying to leave any stones unturned at the moment. Make sure all options are available to them. Spot somebody in freezer, but it will have to reach a point where TookTheKids commit to something. They got a lot of bodies in a lot of different areas, but they have yet to find an opening or have tried to commit to creating an opening at some place.
Seems like they're committing a little too much to a bit of everything, it seems. Still having someone lightly creep their way down freezer, while we still have someone potentially trying to late rotate over in blue bunker. Drones are being thrown out, scattered across the map to try to see how clear it is when working down those back stairs, and someone waiting patiently on top of the E-box hatch as well. Everything seems to be going all right for TTK so far, but they are short on time, and Karn Co, they are not short on utility to stall out TTK.
Not at all. A lot of these projectiles caught by magnets and ADSs as the nades go through. They don't even find an iota of damage on the side of Karn Co. Whitlock able to survive here for the moment, but the two players pushing down big tower stairs and the two dropping the hatch managed to overcome his play inside of long haul before, and Wi-Fi, the key player who clutched out that basement round, cut down as everyone falls on Karn Co. CZ the only one with any kind of athleticism so far in round number 11, but he's also now one of the players of the two remaining on low HP. Karn's the only one at full. He's running out of smoke canisters as well. Final one detonates. That's still 10 seconds in 2 different areas that will be burned off the clock. CZ's also watching long, but nobody's covering Mr. B. Again, another oversight, but as Karn gets aggressive, he's shut down. Now Packer can pick up Mr. B's slack, and CZ can get cut down in long. TookTheKids take match point.
A major sigh of relief, eventually killing out Carnage and only having to worry about the last defender trying to wide swing over in through the double door close to Laundry, and Woos was guarding that with his life as they needed that round to secure match point. And you know what? The hero play working in through, I believe that to be Freezer, it did pay off because everyone was just, again, hard focusing on the back take. You normally don't expect anybody to solo walk down Freezer when it's more that blue bunker, E-box, and back stairs play. But, I mean, if you're just going to end up funneling, you know, the same 3 people in one direction, you might as well diversify a little bit. And because we had Gavini pick the perfect ult to strike, he found multiple kills and was taken care of when the damage had already been done. It was far too late. 4v2, and although Carnage did slow down TTK, it was still too much time on the board and still too many players to get that refrag eventually.
And the way these rounds have been going, it's still likely we could have overtime on the board. We've seen TTK win a round, then Karn Co answer back, and then so on, so on, and so on. TTK have now won basement. We'll see how Karn Co can answer back. But again, one time they won this site on basement so far came down to Wi-Fi not only getting a 4K, but winning a 1v1 as well. So it has not by any means been decisive, well, for either of these teams so far, to be perfectly frank, but especially for Karn Co so far. We'll see a change. We'll see Hat go to the Warden. ball operators. You know, not a lot of Ying play coming out from TTK, but those flashes and those smokes coming down through E-Box, John, that could be perfect to counter the 4 players who have been routinely dropping and running down into that area.
It does allow over-aggression. I am a little shocked that Hoax is potentially not running the shotgun, though, if he is going to play there. Maybe he'll be holding down longer angles to stop some of those flash plays.
Watch
or
Freezer.
At least with the, yeah, that is a good point. Or at least with the MPX, you can actually proxy near pillar and stop anybody from going backstairs. So that is, I guess, something to note as well. But it all depends on what Hoax wants to do moving forward towards the end of this action phase. You're probably not going to be doing all that much on the Warden in the first minute.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is Hat, of course, but I doubt on Warden he's going to be doing much in the first minute 30, unless the attack gets very quick with things, but still doubt that. CZ pushed to the top of Freezer stairs. No one from TookTheKids really looking right now. They've actually gone for a full clear, taking the top floor, and of course there are still some very useful applications of that control. That breach charge you just saw, and another breach charge on top of main stairs can help you watch and see if anybody is pushing aggressively up the stairs. But that's more for main than Freezer. You still have to worry about players like Hat and CZ holding this position right here. Tempted to swing up and get aggressive, but nobody from TookTheKids is even remotely over there, save for Gavini, who is on drone.
Quite literally stacked up for a handful of seconds until one of the two eventually just falls back and retreats fully into the bomb site at this point. Minute 30 to go, and it's still the same structure we have seen every single time. Laundry has been in play. TTK, they have the Habana, get all the hatches opened up. They start feeding themselves information, setting a couple people up near Freezer. They've got the backstairs pressure like I mentioned earlier. Again, it's just a matter of when and how they're able to get this first pick in the books.
Would be from a nade, as there's still 3 on the board for TookTheKids. Would be from Gavini, who's been very successful pushing in through Freezer in the late round, but it looks like Mr. B and the rest of TookTheKids are all very much focusing on Freezer and Laundry instead of going down big tower stairs, and this is actually probably favoring that Warden pick for Hat a little bit more. Pillar can be a little difficult, but here you can play the Laundry Machine, or you can play in Freezer as he's doing right now, and peek through any of these flashes, or peek through any of these smokes. It's not as difficult to make work as Pillar might. Right as I say that, there's still a smoke coming through, and still one player playing over by big tower. 30 seconds remaining. TookTheKids, they're all stacked on this side, but they need to start committing to a push and trying to find an opening. None has worked so far. Woo still has 2 grenades, but the first kill goes Karn Co's way. Chris goes down to Hat, though Woos finally answers back, and Gavini just pushing on in, holding down Mouse 1 as hard as he can. He's the only one left, though, and we've got our first overtime of Stage 2 in Challenger League, as neither team can keep the lead for long.
The confidence being able to be fully reliant on your util denial with the ADSs, the magnets, and now having the smart glasses as well. It was just the final nail in the coffin, and unlike a lot of other rounds we saw by TTK, they weren't able to get the entry at a decent time frame. They were really trying to force the aggression, and Karn Co, they were completely relaxed in their positions. They let TTK make that first move, and it was a very ill-advised one at that too. Granting overtime, like you had mentioned, Carter, and like Tanner said all at the beginning, I've mentioned this a couple times, but it's an absolute barn burner, but it makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, both these teams have a lot of similarities because they have a lot of new people on their roster and still a lot of growing pains to get through in Stage 2.
Hey, given that pattern so far with each team being back and forth, now it's TTK's turn to take the turn. They are starting out on the attack, which, I mean, so far there's neither side really been favored, so take that as you will. They're on the attack. Cool. Still not been super decisive for Karn Co in these rounds. I mean, we had round 12, which was very much decisive for Karn Co, but overall, it's still come down to the wire, and maybe TTK will go back to their pushes down Big Tower Stairs, which have worked out a lot more for them, because right there for Freezer, not only were they unsuccessful in the execute, setting up was about all they really did right, or at least seemed to have worked for them.
I didn't even notice this until now, but there weren't even magnets on the board last round either, and well, there wasn't an entry in the first 20 seconds, nor a refrag.
All right.
Triss through the small tower window, manages to eliminate the Warden early on. That is a huge sigh of relief. Yes, you lost Gavini, who's been a fantastic entry fragger, or just gunner in general so far, but same thing can be said for Hat. It's just 2 top fraggers gone in the first 20 seconds or so. That's not too bad at all.
Not bad whatsoever. That is a very fair exchange. Very fair exchange for TTK in the early round. course, now you don't have to worry about those warding glasses. Once they identify who Hat was, once you send out those flashes and those smokes, you know that the player, barring anybody hiding in a corner and somehow evading it, is probably going to be blind or won't be able to peer through that line of sight. And you can play with a little bit more certainty in that regard. TookTheKids can also now as well go on with their normal clear. Sure, not up a man, but still having taken down such a powerful player. You can open these hatches, do whatever you want, without one of the most aggressive players for Karn Co still being on the board.
So you know with those razor blooms, though, that could always be a problem, as it has been a few rounds in this best-of-1 matchup, especially since CTK have been a little slow sometimes on their rounds, especially if they cannot get the ball rolling early on in terms of, winning some sort of opening gunfight. They technically have done that, but it was an even 1-for-1 trade, so call it what you will. It still feels like it's a pretty darn equal position for both teams, and that timer, it's slowly getting smaller and smaller as we continue throughout this round.
You can see TTK, I think, going back to their roots on Oregon so far, at least their roots in this game. Going to big tower stairs, we see 2 players already on the landing. They do, of course, here, if you're just now tuning in or don't remember, 2 players on the hatch, and then they drop, throwing those flashes, throwing those smokes, then try to get those kills. And it's worked out fairly well so far. We do see Whitlock move to Harry Potter, though. Might reveal his position as Packer swings. He does it in time with the flashbang, but only does a little bit of damage as he actually blinds himself in the process.
Still able to survive a little while longer, just biding time. No one can properly push down backstairs so long as his Jaeger remains alive, but having to worry about E-Box, backstairs, and blue bunker, it can be very clear to maybe try to shut down this Jaeger, but a lack of info allows him to find 1, almost 2, but finally it's traded out by Packer.
Excellent recovery by Packer right there. Whitlock had match point in his hands right there. Packer shuts that one down. Second Razor Bloom goes off. Wi-Fi's got a third in his pocket as well. If Mr. B goes on into plant, which he surely will. Oh no, he just evades it by just a hair. The Razor Bloom does not proc, but the bullets for Wi-Fi certainly do. Mr. B pulls off and falls to the ground, and Karn Co take match point firmly in their grasp.
Even though we had people walking in through blue bunker, there was still a lack of a clear to actually get rid of Carnage, still playing there as the smoke. Having to worry about that, and also Wi-Fi rocking the Thorn, getting aggressive, and almost having another Razor Bloom to stop Mr. B off that plant. It did seem like, again, Karn Co, they were just in their element. They were fully reassuring themselves that they were going to win their gunfights, or at least hold down enough of the map to where TTK are going to be very vulnerable to, multi-attacks, or just in general, not going to have enough coverage to properly get that plant down, or at least win enough ones to, get the round win outright just by having no defenders left to kill.
Also the first time, John, at least in the second half of the game, somebody was able to win 2 rounds in a row. Obviously in the first half, added a couple of times, but nobody was from rounds 7 through 12. So now Karn Co not only able to break that streak, they also now get to go to attack in basement. I mean, again, it was fine. 1-1, lost 2, so not a stellar record. You also have to worry about those Valk cams, which TTK will bring back on the board, and those kind of, at least Trist on the Valkyrie in particular, kind of had a delayed impact. At first, didn't seem like he was doing too much, but as we went later and later on, Trist actually had quite a bit of impactful kills, potentially fueled by that intel.
Karn Co trying to get creative here potentially on round number 14. They've got the Ying in the hands of Hat with some secondary hard breach. I mean, to me, this just screams we want to open up E-Box potentially and then just go run down the hatch, blue bunker, maybe someone on backstairs potentially, and just kind of ignore the other half of the map for the most part. Even though we have the Magnets ADSs all proc, a majority of them might be relegated towards Freezer, so this could be a huge opportunity for Karn Co just to hit the site and start shooting people that don't even have a chance to fight back because they're fully blind.
And I know Hat and CZ would be more than happy to go down that line of that train of thought you're thinking about right now. Of course, some drones still just kind of probing for information. Doesn't seem like they're going to get too quick with it, but maybe once those hatches open, like you said, they'll spring the trap, throw down the Candelas, maybe a nade, maybe something else. Then we'll see them start moving on forward. For now, they are heavily focused in Big Tower right now. Of course, not even a Hibana on the board, just those 2 hard breach charges for Karn Co right now. So whatever hatches they open up, that's the side they're committing to.
Well, with no Cade, you don't really need to worry about anyone trying to, Cade trick the hatches, and with all the walling or the flooring being hard, no one can actually go for an impact denial either, so at least that guarantees you get the hatch opened up in through E-Box, and seems like Hoax or / Hat might want to try to relegate his last charge over near potentially the lobby one, to maybe help out CZ, as he's been kind of prowling over near the main lobby side of the map as of right now, but not confirming it just yet. Maybe he'll go in through Freezer. Either way, it's another point of attack for Karn Co, and and another element of surprise later in the round.
Still got probably about 40 seconds or so before you really have to start looking towards that side, maybe even sooner, as still a 5v5, but we saw how TTK struggled to push forward in 5v5s before, though. Now specifically pushing Laundry and Freezer right here. Looks like that Karn Co are going for back tower, and maybe somebody lurking in Freezer in the late round, like we saw Gavini and the rest of TookTheKids do on their attacks throughout their previous attack round. First, Candelas go on through. Just the one so far, maybe testing the waters. A nade goes on in instead. Mr. B put to 1 HP, not by a nade, but by bullets. The 2 more go through, and finally, Hat drops down E-Box and promptly dies. Woo's Packer both pick up 1. Wi-Fi's the only one who makes that scramble for control work for Karn Co, as it really has not paid off whatsoever. No control gained. Pillar still controlled by the defense. Mr. B can easily catch Wi-Fi off guard and put the diffuser down right in front of him. The only guy left is Whitlock, and he's sitting outside in barrels, not even in the building. With only 20 seconds left, he'll maybe rotate up the big tower to just try to make something different, but with likely only 10 seconds left once he starts pushing. 4 people to kill. It's likely round 15 on the board, unless something changes. 5 seconds to go. 2 kills. Now, unfortunately, we'll have round 15 on the board, even if Whitlock gets 1 more to pad his stats.
Close call, despite it being a 1v4 at one point, but again, the coordination in that execute just didn't work out. I believe the nade was used to make sure nobody could wide swing in through the actual supply doorway when the E-Box drop happened, so they could just focus on the guy in pillar. But again, the timing of both the nade spam and the Candelas, it just wasn't proper. And instead of having those Candelas thrown out both near supply doorway and also the doorway leading from E-Box in through pillar, they just threw them all in one or the other and picked a 50-50 gamble essentially. And again, not having anyone properly clear out blue bunker, it forced essentially a funnel because no one went down and through freezer. Everyone went through either back stairs or E-Box, and again, that lack of a bunker presence, it allowed just pretty much everyone to focus on one portion of the map, and that was it. And because of that, we see a full 15 rounds here in Oregon.
I mean, I don't know why. To be fair, I don't know why we expected anything else from TookTheKids. I mean, I know Tanner was talking about a barn burner earlier, but this is TookTheKids playing right now. Literally cannot help themselves from playing all 15 rounds in a best of 1. So, I don't know why I thought maybe, there would even be a regulation win. That was silly of me. But there is still a chance they could end up losing this. We'll actually see an interesting shift from Trist. Never mind, it's back to Nook, so doesn't matter. I was going to say, I wonder why he decided to give up the Nook. He seemed to really favor it on the Dorm's attacks, but he's back to it, so doesn't matter. Both attacker repicks, actually, just go back to the same operator, so.
I think here I think the Nook pick here is a little more useful than the Ash because you're probably going to want to utilize the nades via vertical, and with Ash, you're probably going to do the same thing because you already have Gavini on Zoe and Woos with another set of grenades and Packer with nades. So it made more sense. And again, also the major info denial you can have with that Hell system. So it just makes a little sense. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we don't see Triss just, walk up white stairs like we saw over on stage 1. No, he's actually on the single games window repel. Maybe trying to throw some grenades over, breaking any kind of util that's nearby the double wall because there's no wall denial utility. Maybe just some ADSs or something else, perhaps like a Banshee. Or he's just waiting there for someone to go peek him. He can just gun them down to grant that first entry. Because again, when TTK get that 5-on-4 lead, they pick up the pace on their executes and just overall map control pretty darn effectively. And, well, there it is. At least he downs CZ, so if the nade is tossed out properly, that's a 5-on-4.
And unfortunately, CZ not able to crawl to safety right there, so Trist can take full advantage of that. CZ also, again, on a Dorm's defense. Those were Mize taken down early on. No more magnets to generate. That really wasn't his fault, though. I mean, sure, he rotated in front of the window, but he wasn't playing in garage like he was last time. It also leads to TookTheKids able to open up the bedroom wall very early. Maybe focus on attic if they want to, but they are definitely eyeing for a big window play or even a sprint up white stairs.
Wondering how effective Whitlock can be potentially trying to slow down anyone walking up through deer, or also just swinging the attic door if those toxic smokes do not meet their mark. Karn is pretty much across the site, so he's got to get a lot more active if he wants to actually use his utility to slow down this push coming into closet wall.
Might be able to find an angle, but you do have a good point. Maybe you need to start getting into the fray. Now that you're down a man, now that wall is open, you start focusing on Freezer and white stairs. Wi-Fi is playing over there. Unless somebody goes to big window and starts throwing utility, he might be relatively safe, except for some potential nades from below. But there's only one left, and that's Woo's holding it right now, and he might be more focused on locating other players in different positions. TookTheKids have got some good control up until this point, John, but nothing solid just yet.
Packer at least is able to dodge the Razor Bloom. No more funny stuff here by Hat so far. Trist once again being that X factor in this position on the Nook makes it a 5 versus 3, and things seem almost impossible for Karn Co. It's just Carnage and Whitlock left alive. Packer detects 1. Whitlock and Karn find kills of their own, bringing it to a 3 versus 2, but still the man advantage for TTK and the option to go for this plan is going to be massive. Karn was at the shotgun down to 1 HP, but still puts in the 2v2. There's no coverage. Mr. B has to spring up. He gets taken care of by the MP5. It's only Trist, and Karn Co. bring back from the 5v2 to a complete win. Mr. B gets silenced in the round, and somehow one of the lowest teams from stage 1 have a pretty close call, but still a win outright in this matchup.
Based on how that round started, I did not expect it. But, as you said, something that seemed to be a problem, at least especially in overtime for TTK, maybe some poor coordination and communication between the players seemed to rear its head right there. We get 2 kills from Trist, 1 on that generator window, and 1 as they start to push into the site. Wi-Fi even swings, as of course he kind of needs to in the 3v5.
Yep.
And ends up dying to the player on Freezer Stairs. Or not Freezer Stairs, on White Stairs. And then, I'm going to be real, that was so chaotic, I'm not even entirely sure what happened beyond there just being a mad dash into the site, and Karn Co, with a little bit of luck, just able to take advantage of the entire chaotic situation.
I mean, we could have had just, I suppose, less aggression in the 5v2. I mean, you already worked your kills. You don't need to start running at the opposition, but I guess TTK were thinking of something different. And again, the lack of coverage on the player planting the diffuser. I mean, we saw that last time we saw Mr. B try to go for a full-fledged heavy plant, and it cost them the round last time. It will cost them the game now on round 15 as Karn Co just hold on by a thread and just take the full-fledged victory.
And with that, that's enough for John and I for today. But of course, we still have 2 more games to talk about and the analyst desk to break down that very close victory for Karn Co over TookTheKids.
Very close has to be an understatement. Going the distance, 8-7, and I feel like, you know how we joke about there's 7-4 games that feel like they were closer than that? This was 8-7, and it still felt closer than that. And Tanner, one of the things that we talked about, you know, going into this match was, how are these teams going to work with all the new players? And we expected a lot more chaos, and it didn't start that way, but it absolutely finished that way.
Yeah, it definitely finished that way in overtime. I felt like throughout the body of the match, the main thing we were just seeing was just like a lot of lack of coordination. You know, they're really slow to get their jobs done. They're slow on their executes, and then just a lot of mistakes coming out from both sides. But you know, Karn Co were able to clutch it up in that last round in a 2v5, no less. I don't know where the plant coverage is. That's why you can't just be like, you know, 5v2, just take the gunfights and win. Expect to play trades and win, because you know you're giving the enemy a chance to kind of get back in the game. That's exactly what, you know, Karn was able to do. They were able to put down some smokes, get a smoke kill, get a shotgun kill, you know, able to deny the plants, right, and then just basically smoke and isolate a very poorly timed execute coming out from the side of TookTheKids.
And CJ, do you think, looking at this game, it was just so close between these two teams? Is this what we expected between like two teams with so many changes? You know, there's just so much uncertainty surrounding this. What was your take on how it all played out?
I have a stat for your hind end, okay?
Ooh.
Karn's team had 4 1vx's, not including the last 2v5. That doesn't count as a 1vx. So that's 5 rounds that Karn's team potentially could have lost. But they, forceful, as you said in our green room, they managed the chaos. They managed the chaosity of a 1vx.
That's not a word.
That's not what I said.
That's not even close to a word.
Chaosity.
They managed it enough to win those rounds, 5 different rounds. And clearly, in a 7-7, 8-7 affair, when you win 5 different clutches, and you know, it's pretty meaningful. I would say I'm not that great at math, but I can tell you that mattered quite a bit in this one.
I mean, you're not too great at English either, Mr. Chaosity, but you know, we got you here anyways. Tanner, we were talking about this, except for winning round 1 when they came out the gate 1-0, Karn Co, they were up. It wasn't until taking that first round in overtime where they managed to get up again. This is a game that they literally pulled from the jaws of defeat.
Absolutely. And it feels bad because, like, you go and look at the stats here, you see Packer, Packer put on one hell of a performance. 93 cost is nothing to really snuff at. Like, that's a one heck of a game performance. And basically, when it comes down to overtime there, it just came down to the two IGLs. Like, who learned more throughout the entire process of how the other team likes to play, who could put up these adaptations a little bit more effectively and manage to come out with a round win. And in the end, I think both of them did pretty well. I mean, they both won their defensive half and then or their attacking half, and then we went right to the final round, and it was just a clutch. So yeah, I honestly don't know what to say here. Like, it's just they played well. They managed the chaosity, if you will. It was biblical, if you will, and it was a good game. It was a good game to watch.
Well, we're going to just have to ask Wi-Fi about it because I'm sure he's got some answers about what went down since, I mean, he experienced it firsthand. Wi-Fi, congratulations. This is a big win for you guys. This is a big win for you guys. Does this feel important considering how much change went on with this team?
Yeah, I'm really just a sub for like the first game, so I don't really have much to say, but yeah, that's a big one for us considering like we've had one day of practice with us 5. Yeah. I mean,
Was the goal coming into this game just to get any points you could get or improvement? What was the mindset coming into it?
I mean, I think everybody on the teams just come in like we're gonna destroy these guys, right? Because like, I mean, they're decent players, but they're not like crazy, so everybody's beatable.
Now, Hat made his CL debut, and it was mighty impressive. What's it like playing with him?
I love Hat. Hat's a buddy. He's one of the guys that can change a game.
Well, he absolutely did that time. Congratulations on the win, even if it was for a little sub here or there. But good luck for the rest of the stage for your team.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Cookies, if you're either one of these two teams, do you think this is almost a win for both teams, walking away with points when you came into the match with so much uncertainty?
Technically, yes. That is, you absolutely nailed it, Brim. If you come in and you're missing people and you're lucky, if you're TTK, you're lucky you even have a spot anymore. Like, you're lucky Trish said, all right, I'll come back. Like, getting a point here and having something to build off of, it's a win for them, even though they lost. And of course, this was a team they placed decently in top 6 for stage. So any point matters in terms of getting, at the end of the year into the playoffs, your TTK. So I'm sure they'll take this. And I'm sure Mr. B will be very angry and very passionate about improvement going forward.
Well, I'm sure we'll also hear about it soon enough because I'm sure they're going to win matches eventually. Okay, 2 more matches left today, as Carter let us know earlier when the match was done. But of course, as always, we have to flip to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be seeing Luminosity again, this time taking on Aqualid.